Hey all, this is the Poor Sports Seattle podcast with our first mock draft Monday of the year. Could I have done one earlier? Sure. Should I have probably waited a little bit longer? Probably also sure. However, I don't think there's a big point in doing any of this until free agency has at least settled down a little bit. The Seahawks have had kind of a slow free agency, a conservative free agency. Frankly, it's exactly the free agency I wanted them to have. I want them to be a little bit conservative. I want to do a video pretty soon about who and how they can keep some of their star players. But one of the ways that you do that is by not going out and overspending on aging talent, frankly. Talent that you're not certain is going to be compatible with your system, with your locker room, with your culture. Talent that you don't necessarily know all the health and all that background of. But last year I did a couple of these mock drafts. Great feedback in the comments. One time it took me until like 11 or 12 minutes into the video to make a pick. So we're going to start that process a little bit earlier this time around because I genuinely, by the way, leave comments like that. Very good feedback. Love to hear it. Wish that everyone cared to hear me pontificate a little bit longer, but they don't. So let's get into this right now. Let's just make sure that I have the right window up. We are going to draft for the Seahawks all 7 rounds on the Pro Football Focus mock draft simulator. Running, I almost made this mistake. We are going to run it in slow motion. We'll talk about the Seahawks draft needs, not slow motion, but the slowest speed. It gives us about 2 minutes to talk about what the Seahawks actually need. So the Seahawks have, when we came into the offseason, I said their top need was an edge rusher and 2 edge rushers and 2 cornerbacks. They have not acquired a meaningful edge rusher. They did sign Noah, and I looked this up, and now I'm Noah Igbenogany, former first round pick of the Miami Dolphins, a guy who's like a traitsy physical cornerback. I do think the Seahawks have a type of cornerback that they like that is a traitsy guy, and I think that they don't necessarily need someone who's been incredibly productive to step into their system. I would say look for that dude to make to have more of an impact than you might expect from a guy who's signed this late into free agency for that little money. That being said, I like Nehemiah Pritchett also. So I do think the Seahawks need to add a cornerback at some point. Maybe it's not in the first round. Certainly by the time their second pick comes around, the cornerback class is going to be a lot worse. And this is not a very good draft. I think that's important to keep reiterating because people will start to tell you that it actually is a good draft. And I'm not walking it. This is not a good draft. Next year should be a historically good draft. Last year was not a good draft. This year, not a good draft. The year before that was a pretty good draft. The year before was like super COVID affected. So I would say if the Seahawks are going to go cornerback, the best spot for them to do that is at 32. I'm also going to do one thing real quick. I'll see if I can pull it off on here. For some reason, the Seahawks have the 212th pick, not the 187th pick. This weirdly has gotten mixed up on Pro Football Focus in just like the last week. So I'm going to go try to fix that right now. It's involved in a Lions and Browns trade that I can't remember if the Browns or the Lions have it. I'm just going to give it to the Lions because I know the Lions happen to have the 212th pick, which is the one the Seahawks actually have. And I'm going to trade them the 187th. We'll force the trade. Just getting that out of the way before the Seahawks pick on here. Not going to worry about that and how it affects their grade, obviously. So you're sitting here. This is what I was talking about, how I think these are the cornerbacks that I like. Colton Hood. I actually think Colton Hood's probably not the highest on my list of the remaining guys. I like Brandon Cisse. I like D'Angelo Pons a lot. And one thing that I think we should remember is that Mike Macdonald did not pick Devin Witherspoon. Mike Macdonald did not pick Tariq Woolen. We don't really have, he picked Nehemiah Pritchett, or him and John Schneider did, but that we don't know exactly what he likes. I'm tempted, we're not going to do any trades today, but I'm tempted to trade back and try to get D'Angelo Pons in the mid-second round. But you can see, so Colton Hood, D'Angelo Pons, Keith Abney, I like all 3 of those guys, and Keontae Scott. And that's like the cliff. That's where the cornerback class kind of drops off. So if I'm the Seahawks, I'm hoping they get themselves in a position to be able to do best player available. In this case, maybe you would want TJ Parker because I think the edge class is a little bit deeper. We're going to go with Colton Hood. By the way, I was looking at the mock draft database consensus mock draft, and the Seahawks consensus pick is Colton Hood. Makes a lot of sense. I'm not a scout by any means. The profiles of there's a bunch of guys who profile as these like kind of taller physical cornerbacks that people are presuming the Seahawks want, even though they haven't made a huge investment in a cornerback since Mike Macdonald has been their head coach. Assuming that's the case, there's a kind of a group of those guys that are all pretty similar. Cissay's one, Abney's one that's probably a little bit less physical. Colton Hood, and then there's some other dudes that are kind of fit the same profile that don't usually make it to the Seahawks in these simulated mock drafts. By the way, this is a liquid IV. Sometimes I'll be in a meeting and I have like a cold brew in a beer glass because I have almost exclusively beer glasses. I have to tell them it's not that I'm not drinking beer. Now I guess I'm telling you this is not like insemination fluid. I don't know. This one does not look good. I can't imagine it looks good on camera. It's also kind of rested at the bottom. Keontae Scott I like a lot. If he fell to 64, or if I had any confidence that he would, I'd be stoked. Deny Dennis Sutton goes at 58. That's a tough one. That's a guy who I'd certainly be considering at the 64th pick. A guy that I think the Seahawks fits the Seahawks pretty damn well. Super traitsy edge rusher with some, wow. I haven't seen Ty Simpson ever fall this far, to be honest with you on this. And I do think the Seahawks have an opportunity to trade back. I've already committed to not making trades in this mock draft, but were Ty Simpson to fall to 64, and I think even if he falls to 32, whoever the second quarterback is, if they fall to 32, the Seahawks have an opportunity to give a team a fifth year on Ty Simpson. And especially, by the way, if the Seahawks have any interest in using that first-round pick on a guard, on a safety, any of the positions where the salaries get grouped in with higher cost players, so guards get grouped in with tackles for their fifth-year options. To be able to give a fifth-year option on a quarterback to a team is very valuable. Okay, so we're at 64. The Seahawks are obviously not going to take Ty Simpson. Took Colton Hood at 32. There's this dude, Derek Moore. I'm going to show you his PFF grades. Pass rush grade, 92.4. Run defense grade, also pretty good. A guy that I think could profile well as like a kind of like a guy in waiting behind DeMarcus Lawrence. Maybe improve the run defense a little bit. Guy that probably comes in and makes an impact right away. Although I have seen some studies suggesting, and where did I see this? Non-first round, specifically round 2, but like outside of the first round, it's a lot harder to find super impact rookie edge rushers. So while I think the edge rusher class is probably weak after the second round, I also wonder if using a pick that early on an edge rusher, but not in the first round, is a way to make the 2026 team that much better. Some people have the appetite to take Mike Washington here. I would like to see the Seahawks, and I think they're doing this. We've seen it with the way they let Ken Walker walk. That their replacement for Ken Walker was Emmanuel Wilson, who cost them almost nothing, did not cost them even a comp pick. I'm not into the idea of taking Mike Washington in the second round. If he somehow fell to their third-round pick, which seems unlikely with his athletic profile, I'd be totally in. So at this spot, I'm going to take Derek Moore and kind of not think that the work in adding talent at edge is done with that. Derek Moore, by the way, played at Michigan, did not play under Mike Macdonald. I don't think anyway. I think all the guys that played under Mike McDonald are gone by now. Um, so I think that there's a very good chance that the Seahawks' first two picks go some order, but it'll be like edge corner and not necessarily in that order. If they think a corner will fall to them at 64, or especially, I do think the preferred outcome for this draft should be the Seahawks trade back, get more picks, get more bites at the apple, and also hopefully get some picks in 2027. If any team is desperate enough to move up for somebody, one of the tackles at the end of the first round or Ty Simpson, then I think the Seahawks may have a chance of acquiring a day one or day two pick in 2027. And like I said, I got to figure out who to contact at Pro Football Focus to figure out why they have that the Seahawks picking at 187th when almost maybe everyone else has them at 212. Um, but yeah, that's as we can see on here. There sometimes Jonah Coleman falls here. We'll talk about that if it happens. I don't think I've seen him get picked. He typically goes right after the Seahawks if he doesn't get picked if I don't pick him. The see this is interesting because if I was the Seahawks and I was going to draft any offensive line position and any offensive lineman, both these guys that just went, Logan Jones, Jake Slaughter, both centers that I would have been interested in. Both pretty good zone ratings. Logan Jones, high pass block rating by PFF. Jake Slaughter, high zone rating and high rating across the board. I'd like to see some competition at the center position. Round 3, you're probably trying to find a guy that'll play meaningful snaps, like something like the majority of snaps somewhere. Maybe it may be a little early to take a project center. But I also think, I just believe in the philosophy of competition. I think that was one thing that Pete Carroll did throughout his entire tenure that I respected and believed in. So the Seahawks have a decision here. Jonah Coleman, and by the way, Jonah Coleman, because Seahawks run a wide zone, very high zone grade. This is something I am paying attention to. There's a couple other running backs, some guys that I'd like to talk about later in the draft season that are I think interesting propositions where I don't think it's a certain slam dunk that if Jonah Coleman is available at 96, the Seahawks take him. They're certainly not taking a quarterback this high. I like the idea of Malachi Fields. I like somebody to take meaningful targets off of Jackson Smith and Jigba's plate. And that's one thing. One weakness I think that Rashid Shaheed has is he didn't take a ton of targets off of JSN's plate. And I think that's what you want. I think you want a guy that's gonna ease the burden. I don't think you can have JSN getting 150 targets a year and stay healthy. So I like Malachi Fields here. I would like to see the Seahawks get a true, traditional nose tackle. They had Jonathan Hankins on the roster last year. Doesn't end up making it. He's made some waves in the last couple days. He was on the Brock and Salk radio show talking about how he didn't think that DeMarcus Lawrence was going to retire. Also, I think quietly announced his retirement. And who did he say? I think he wants to retire as a Raider, which that makes some sense. Also said that he does not get a Super Bowl ring, which makes me wonder how contentious his deciding to play or not play actually was. Like how well represented by the Seahawks in the media was that. So Dante Corleone, I think is very interesting. Big nose tackle from Cincinnati, 335 pounds, 6'1", just a brick shithouse. The run wall the Seahawks have talked about. The nose tackle duties have fallen largely on Byron Murphy and Jerron Reed. I think both guys have played admirably. I'd be curious, especially with Murphy, how much do you free up by not having him have to be in there stuffing the run. And I'm interested in taking Corleone here. The name's also very fun, if we're being honest. There's also a Daryl Jackson Jr. who's not related to the Daryl Jackson of Seahawks fandom, but it would be kind of fun to have another Daryl Jackson on the roster. I don't think that the Seahawks need to draft a running back high. I think that what they have done will be enough. I think whatever is left in Zach Charbonnet, I think the return maybe of Kenny McIntosh, George Halani, and somebody that they draft a little bit later. That combination, anyone else they bring in, I am far down the running backs don't matter spectrum. So I'm not going to take Jonah Coleman. But do I take Corleone or do I take Malachi Fields? I think I'm going to take Corleone. I talked myself into it because theoretically Torrey Horton coming back, Cooper Kupp coming back, Rashid Shaheed coming back, JSN coming back, and then Jake Bobo got tendered also. Like that's 5 guys that should be able to play meaningful snaps. So I think that would be more of a luxury than doing something to reinforce the run wall. But yeah, I'm taking Dante Corleone. Again, though, very fun name. So now, this is why you want the Seahawks to trade back, and I'll speed this up in just a moment, but the Seahawks have over 100 picks between picks. I just can't imagine they aren't going to be considering moving back. I think they're always considering moving back, but I think just to get more draft picks, more cracks at it, I think it would be very valuable. If they can trade picks for 2027 picks, that'd be great also. But I would suspect the Seahawks will pick more than 4 times in this draft. That's my guess. I don't have any insight. All right, we'll speed it up to fast. Get this video done a little bit earlier than I would have last year. Again, leave feedback in the comments. Tell me what you think about the picks that I had the Seahawks make. And tell me what you think about the mock draft in general, who you think the Seahawks will pick. And then I have a guy that I'm planning on taking with this 212th pick. So by the way, Eli Heidenreich, very interesting prospect. He's a converted receiver. He's listed on here as a fullback. I want to say he's 206 pounds. He's a converted receiver, played in the backfield I think largely as a halfback or maybe as a fullback in the Navy system. But like, fullback is a misnomer here. I would not expect him to be an NFL fullback. He's a guy, maybe a little bit of a gadget guy, but a guy that's going to be, so he's one guy I'm very interested in that I think would be great value here. The fact that he's listed as a fullback is a misconception. There's another running back that I'm interested in. I love converted receivers. So Adam Randall out of Clemson. By the way, great zone rating. If you look at like the scouting reports on him, they'd say needs to be in a zone system to excel probably. So you think converted receiver needs to be in a outside zone system. You're expecting this guy to be, 5'9", 180 pounds. You're expecting a Devin Achane. 6'2", 235. And I believe at the combine came in even a little bit bigger. I think this is the kind of guy, and like I said, converted receiver, a guy who maybe could line up at like slot tight end for you, frankly, at that size, is in on passing downs, of course, and a guy who maybe could line up in the slot in other situations, get the ball in space with the ability to make people miss or run them over. Super interesting prospect to me, Adam Randall. Real quickly, I'm going to pull up his combine information. Did he get invited to the combine? He did. So he did get invited to the combine. 4.5 40-yard dash, 37-yard vertical, 10.4 broad jump, all and 26 bench presses with 32-inch arms and 9 3/4-inch hands. A big dude, big athletic dude that can run some people over. That is a dark horse for me. And I think the Seahawks in the 7th round, one of the things they tend to do is to draft players they think they may not have a chance at in undrafted free agency, even with the idea this guy may never make the roster. I think in Adam Randall's case, or Eli Heidenreich's case, or Desmond Reed, who's on this list, or Roman Hemby, and in fact, the other Kalen Black, the other Indiana running back, sometimes falls to here. If you're a running back and the Seahawks take you in the 7th round, that's probably the most ideal place for you to go. A place where there's an obvious path to carries, because there's no claim on carries right now if Zach Charbonnet is still injured. There's just no claim. So I would imagine that Seattle would be a priority place for undrafted free agents. But if they have any uncertainty that they'll be able to get that guy, so this is all to get to talking more about the 7th round pick than I did about any of the other picks combined. I'm going to take Adam Randall because he's a guy that I'm very interested in. I would love it if the Seahawks could somehow get Eli Heidenreich and Adam Randall. One of those guys probably won't get drafted. I would bet if you were to put betting odds on it, I bet it would be in the pluses on the money line. We're going to draft Adam Randall. We're going to get a really bad grade on that, by the way. And I get that. Because PFF doesn't have him ranked very high. They have him ranked like 300th. I took him at 212. I suspect it's going to get, it only got a C. That's not bad. Ranked several steps back from this is interesting. This suggests here, PFF suggests I should have drafted Ty Simpson. I mean, it would have been tremendous value. It was like 20 picks past his ranking. But, I mean, you got to be kidding me if you think the Seahawks are going to take a quarterback in the 2nd round. We get a B. Here's the draft. And ignore the trade. The trade is just to make the draft reflect reality. Again, I don't know why PFF did that. Next week, we will allow ourselves 1 or 2 trades, depending on how the draft falls. Colton Hood, Derek Moore, Dante Corleone, Adam Randall. Thank you for listening to this, by the way. We will move on. Tomorrow's St. Patrick's Day. I might try to do a Comedians Roundtable episode on Wednesday with Andrew and Corey. Very nice to hear that the Sonics might be coming back officially. And then come this weekend, I'll be at Tacoma Comedy Club opening for Jordan Fisher. And then April 2nd through 4th, I'm opening for Gabriel Rutledge at the Emerald City Comedy Club in Capitol Hill in Seattle. Thank you all for listening to this. Please share it with a friend. Ruin somebody else's afternoon with it. I will talk to you all later. Bye.